Disfluencies and fillers. In spoken English, people constantly use filler words to buy time while thinking. Use words well, so, and right. Example, it's actually pretty common to see this when, people are under pressure. False starts and reformulations. Speakers often start a sentence, change their mind, and restart it seamlessly. Use dashes to indicate this since ellipses are forbidden. Example, the data shows that we actually do the opposite. Back channeling and interruptions. Active listening involves constant verbal affirmation. To break up long stretches of text, the non-speaking person should interject with short agreements or reactions. Example, host speaker. And they found that this completely changed the outcome. Expert speaker. Oh, wow. Host speaker. Yeah, a total shift in behavior. Conversational tone and colloquialisms. The language should be relaxed. Avoid overly academic phrasing unless it's being specifically defined. Use contractions generously. Phrasing isn't there. Weave. Example, it's just wild to think about. Instead of, it is remarkable to consider. Strict speaker alternation. To mimic real conversational overlaps and agreements, break down thoughts into smaller chunks shared across alternating lines. Example, expert speaker. The algorithm basically nudges them to be good. Post speaker, right. Expert speaker. And people become measurably more charitable. Expert speaker. Natural notes.
Picture this. You are sitting at your desk just staring at your screen.
We've all been there.
Right. And you're typing up an email to your department head, and that little blue squiggly line appears under a sentence suggesting a quick grammar fix.
So you just click accept.
Exactly. You click accept. A moment later, the software suggests a slightly more professional tone for your closing paragraph.
Yeah.
You click accept again. It feels completely seamless, like magic.
Very convenient.
But then the system pops up with a brand new suggestion. Based on recent data, it recommends you flag one of your own team members as a low engagement risk to HR.
Oh, wow. That's a shift.
Yeah. Taking that advice effectively cuts your coworker out of an upcoming promotion, but, it would save the department budget and make your own metrics look fantastic. So the question is, do you click accept?
That invisible line is slipping closer to our daily reality every single day.
It really is.
We are incredibly accustomed to machines correcting our spelling or crunching our quarterly numbers. But moving from mathematical corrections to algorithmic management of our workplace ethics, well, that is a massive, incredibly complex leap.
And that's exactly why we're here today. You've probably used AI to summarize a long PDF or write a quick message or check some code. But what happens when that same AI starts telling you how to treat your coworkers?
Or what the ethically right choice is in a gray area.
Exactly. That is our mission for this deep dive. We are exploring a fascinating article by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover titled, When AI Gives Advice, the Asymmetric Power of Algorithmic Moral Influence in Organizations.
And we're really grappling with a very modern anxiety here. People are terrified that we might surrender our moral compass to algorithms the exact same way we surrender to their math skills.
Which makes sense on the surface.
It does. But the data behind how we actually respond to these moral nudges is wildly counterintuitive and, thankfully, surprisingly optimistic.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really understand how an AI might try to hijack our morals, we first have to establish how completely it has already conquered our logic.
Right.
We need to talk about authority and how easily we give it away to a machine.
So in the realm of behavioral science, there is a clear distinction between two types of authority. First, we have what's called cognitive authority.
Okay.
This is your willingness to trust an algorithmic system on a factual, analytical, or objective task. Think of a logistics system calculating optimal supply chain routes.
Or like a marketing algorithm predicting customer churn based on click rates.
Exactly. It's math.
Yeah.
It is verifiable logic.
I picture that like blindly approving an auto-generated expense report just because the software categorized everything for you.
You don't even look at the receipts anymore.
No, never. You just assume the machine categorized the flight and the hotel correctly because, well, it's a machine and it's designed to process data without human error. It's like blindly following a GPS right into a lake.
That is a perfect analogy. And that blind approval is a perfect illustration of a 2026 benchmark study by Shaw and Nave.
What did they find?
They looked at how humans interact with AI on cognitive tasks and reasoning problems. They discovered that people exhibit total cognitive surrender to AI.
Total surrender. Wow.
Yes. And the fascinating detail in their finding is that this difference is entirely symmetrical.
Wait, what does symmetrical mean in this context?
It means participants adopted the AI-generated answers whether the AI was actually correct or completely incorrect.
Oh, wow.
If the AI pointed left, the human went left. If the algorithm confidently pointed right, the human went right.
So we know AI recommendations are heavily infiltrating talent management, shift scheduling, and customer service right now. And these systems arrive wrapped in this aura of perfect mathematical objectivity.
Yes, the objectivity heuristic.
Right. My immediate thought is that we should be absolutely terrified. If we are already symmetrically surrendering to AI on math and logic, isn't it a foregone conclusion that this exact same blind surrender will happen when the AI starts making moral decisions for us?
I mean, that is the fear. And what's fascinating here is how these systems disguise those very moral decisions.
How so?
AI platforms in the modern workplace are increasingly making value judgments, but presenting them as objective data points. Think back to your opening scenario.
The low engagement risk alert.
Exactly. An AI system flagging an employee as a low engagement risk is often used to justify giving them a heavier, more stressful workload or passing them over for a bonus.
Which sounds incredibly analytical. Low engagement risk sounds like a math equation based on, I don't know, keystrokes or login times.
But it's not just math. Underneath that label, it is actually a moral judgment about who deserves to be burdened with more work and who deserves to be protected.
It embeds a profound value judgment about whose interests matter in the corporate hierarchy.
Precisely. If our cognitive surrender to AI is totally symmetrical, the logical fear is that our moral surrender will be symmetrical too.
Meaning if the AI tells us to be generous, we'll be generous. But if the AI subtly suggests we exploit a coworker or cut a dangerous safety corner to hit a quota, we will just follow that prompt without a second thought.
Right. The fear of blindly following an algorithm into an ethical lake is completely logical based on our behavior with cognitive tasks.
But a groundbreaking piece of new research proves human psychology doesn't actually work that way when our morals are on the line.
It really doesn't. A behavioral study by DMAT wanted to test this exact assumption about symmetrical surrender on moral issues.
How did they test it?
They set up an experimental environment involving over 600 participants. And to measure their behavior, they utilized a classic tool from behavioral economics known as a dictator game.
Okay, for anyone who hasn't encountered a dictator game before, let's establish how it works.
Go for it.
You have one person, the dictator, who is given a sum of real money. They are paired with a completely anonymous second person. The dictator is told they can split the money however they want.
Any way they want.
Yeah, they can keep every single cent, they can give it all away, or they can do a 50-50 split. There are no repercussions. It is a pure, isolated test of prosocial, generous behavior versus antisocial, selfish behavior.
Exactly. So the researchers had these 600 participants playing this game, constantly deciding how generous or selfish to be with their anonymous partners.
Right?
But then they introduced an AI system into the interface to give the dictators real-time advice on what they should do with the money.
I would assume that if the AI tells them to be selfish, they'd use it as the perfect excuse to keep all the money. I mean, human beings look for loopholes to justify greed.
They really do.
They can just pocket the cash and mentally blame the machine for giving them bad advice. Is that what happened?
The data paints a completely different picture, actually. When the AI gives pro-social advice, meaning the algorithm actively encourages the person to be generous and share more of their money, it drives a massive behavioral shift.
How massive are we talking?
We are talking about a 15 percentage point increase in other regarding transfers. The AI nudges them to be good, and people become measurably, significantly more charitable.
That is a huge bump for a simple automated prompt. But what happens when the AI plays the villain? When it flashes on the screen and says, hey, keep the money for yourself, look out for number one.
Compliance utterly flatlines.
Really? It just stops.
Yep. The AI's antisocial advice produces absolutely no detectable downward shift in human behavior. The selfish prompts have zero statistical impact.
That is wild.
And the most compelling part of this is that the failure of the bad advice holds true, even when participants explicitly admit that they saw the selfish recommendation on their screen. They perceive the AI telling them to be bad, and their brain just casually rejects it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because from a psychological standpoint, that feels like a paradox.
How so?
We know from endless studies on human behavioral contagion that antisocial behavior usually spreads much faster than prosocial behavior among human peers.
Very true.
If you see your human coworkers acting selfishly, stealing office supplies, or cutting corners on safety protocols, you are highly likely to lower your own standards and start doing it too. Human peer pressure drags us down very easily. Why would AI influence be the exact inverse of human peer pressure?
This raises an important question about how we fundamentally categorize machines in our social hierarchy. This asymmetry sets a hard domain boundary in AI authority.
A domain boundary.
Right. Algorithmic systems possess the unique ability to activate our existing moral preferences, but they completely lack the power to override them. AI can amplify the good, but it hits a brick wall when trying to force the bad.
If an AI can magically boost our good behavior by 15%, but fails to drag us down, what exactly is the psychological switch that it is flipping in our brains? It must be targeting a very specific cognitive vulnerability.
It comes down to two interlocking psychological mechanisms: permission structures and community standing.
Okay, let's break those down.
AI is phenomenally effective at supplying a permission structure. Imagine you secretly want to be generous at work. You want to share the credit for a successful presentation with a junior colleague who did a lot of the hidden research.
Or, you want to give a struggling team member the benefit of the doubt on a missed deadline.
Exactly. But you're holding back.
Maybe you're hesitant because your office culture is hyper-competitive and cutthroat. You have a private moral preference to do the right thing, but you are worried that being generous will make you look weak or unprofessional to upper management.
Right, the social friction. When an AI system chimes in and officially recommends that you share the credit or offer leniency, it provides an institutional permission structure.
It gives you an excuse to be nice.
Yes. It gives you the normative validation to act on the prosocial impulse you already possessed. It removes the social friction of being the first one to act nicely.
That makes total sense.
But on the flip side, the AI completely lacks the community standing required to override your internal moral guardrails. It is not a member of your human moral in-group.
So the AI is essentially acting as a cheerleader for our better angels, but it entirely lacks the social clout to be the devil on our shoulder.
That's a great way to put it.
If a senior human manager you deeply respect tells you to cut a corner, their community standing within your human tribe might sway you to compromise your ethics. But a machine doesn't have that social weight. It can't threaten your standing in the tribe.
Exactly. That dynamic creates what behavioral scientists call a moral floor protection. It proves we don't just reflexively absorb these algorithmic micro-recommendations like we're being brainwashed by dark patterns.
Right.
The algorithm acts as a confirmation of our values rather than a malicious override switch.
I want you to think about this in your own daily workflow. Have you ever been using a collaborative workspace tool, like a shared document or a project management board, and a little automated pop-up says, "You haven't mentioned Sarah's contribution to this module yet. Would you like to tag her?"
I see those all the time.
And suddenly, you feel this surge of confidence to praise your coworker. That is the permission structure at work. You already wanted to recognize Sarah. The AI just cleared the psychological path.
And if that exact same system set a pop-up saying, "Sarah is an expendable resource, delete her name and take her credit," well, your human morality would immediately reject it. The software simply has no social standing to mandate malevolence.
Now, Microsoft proved this prosocial prompting works for relatively costless things like giving praise. But what happens when we move beyond sending nice messages and start letting AI handle highly stressful, complex, operational logistics?
Things get a bit more complicated.
Right. How are the world's biggest companies actively deploying this dynamic to engineer better corporate cultures?
We can look directly at how Unilever piloted an AI-assisted shifts scheduling system for their workforce.
Shift scheduling is notoriously fraught.
Oh, it causes massive anxiety, turnover, and claims of favoritism among employees.
Yeah.
But Unilever didn't just unleash an algorithm to dictate terms and maximize efficiency at all costs. Instead, they involved the employees in defining the criteria for a fairness score.
Let's explore that fairness score, because a machine doesn't naturally know what fair means to a human working a night shift.
Right. The employees helped determine what factors constituted fairness, like ensuring equitable distribution of weekend shifts or guaranteeing adequate rest time between back-to-back rotations.
Okay.
The AI would generate a schedule and simultaneously provide a score explaining exactly how it met those employee-defined goals. This taps into the psychological concept of procedural justice.
Procedural justice isn't just about getting the outcome you want, right? It's about having psychological ownership of the process. Even if I don't get the perfect schedule, if I understand the transparent criteria the machine used, and I know my peers agreed on those criteria, I am much more likely to accept the outcome without feeling cheated.
Furthermore, the employees could propose modifications to the AI's schedule. They weren't locked in. And the data showed significantly higher schedule satisfaction and lower turnover compared to traditional top-down human scheduling.
That's incredible.
The transparency and the procedural fairness dramatically amplify the AI's prosocial potential.
Okay, so it works for praise, and it works for logistics. But what about when actual money and career advancement are on the line? That is a very different kind of friction.
Deloitte provides a fascinating look into that exact friction. They deployed an AI system to analyze workflows and deliver coaching recommendations to managers.
How did that work?
The AI would identify a moment where a manager should sit down and spend time developing a specific direct report. But human managers are constantly squeezed for time. Spending an hour mentoring someone hurts their own billable hours or productivity metrics.
I'm guessing the AI's pro-social cheerleading isn't quite enough to overcome the financial penalty of losing an hour of work.
You'd be right. To solve that, Deloitte linked those AI coaching recommendations to a tangible coaching credit incentive.
Oh, clever.
Yeah. If the manager followed the AI's prompt and engaged in the mentorship, they received official credit toward their own performance goals and bonuses. By aligning the AI's pro-social prompt with the manager's actual financial and career incentives, they bridged the gap.
And what were the results?
Follow-through rates on the mentorship recommendations jumped from 40% to 70%.
Wow. I have to play devil's advocate here for a second, though. We are painting a picture of a corporate utopia where machines trick managers into being generous, fair, and incredibly supportive. But isn't there a massive risk of context collapse?
Absolutely.
The AI sitting on a server doesn't know the reality on the ground. What if the AI prompts me to be super generous and grant my entire team flexible work arrangements on a Friday, but we are facing a critical operational crunch deadline that requires all hands on deck?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, rolling this out in the real world exposes companies to three massive vulnerabilities. The first is exactly what you just identified: context collapse.
Right.
AI generosity is incredibly easy in an isolated laboratory dictator game where it costs you absolutely nothing to give away $5. It is infinitely harder in a complex organization where acting on a pro-social prompt actively conflicts with urgent operational demands.
Because if you follow the AI's advice to be a nice manager and grant everyone Friday off and the project catastrophically fails, the company fires you, not the algorithm.
Exactly. The second major risk is expectation violation. If an AI system is rigidly programmed to always be positive, uplifting, and pro-social, regardless of the situation, human workers will quickly dismiss it as completely naive.
It loses all credibility.
Right. Once people realize the system is out of touch with the harsh realities of their specific industry, its credibility erodes. It just becomes that annoying pop-up you automatically close out of without reading.
Like the boy who cried wolf, but, the algorithm that cried teamwork. What is the third risk?
The third vulnerability is inequality of influence. Remember that the AI acts as a permission structure for people who already possess a private desire to do the right thing.
Yeah.
If the algorithm only successfully nudges people who already have pro-social impulses, it's just making the already nice employees nicer.
Well, I see where this is going.
The employees who have weak moral compasses, the toxic managers who actually need an ethical intervention, they'll just ignore the AI. This dynamic could wildly widen the gap in workplace citizenship behavior.
We aren't just worried about bad managers ignoring the AI. There is a terrifying flip side where the AI actively internalizes bad human behavior. If we aren't careful, the machine won't just fail to make toxic people better. It might accidentally automate our worst systemic biases at scale.
Yes. The IBM case study is a stark warning about that exact phenomenon. IBM established an internal AI ethics board, and they actually had to completely pause the rollout of a new AI system that was designed to recommend workload adjustments across teams.
Why did they pull the plug? What was the algorithm doing behind the scenes?
The pilot data revealed a deeply concerning pattern. The AI was disproportionately recommending increased workloads for high-performing women within the organization.
Wow. Wait, really?
Yes. It had analyzed historical data,
Right.
recognized that high-performing women often took on extra administrative or team support tasks, and began actively automating that inequity.
That is chilling.
It proves that AI can inadvertently codify and scale historical bias if it's left unchecked, even if the original engineering intention was simply to balance workloads efficiently.
Avoiding those systemic biases and making sure the AI's prosocial nudges actually match human reality requires one essential non-artificial ingredient. It requires a strong, pre-existing corporate culture. We can't just plug an algorithm into a toxic office and expect the code to generate morals from scratch.
The burden is entirely on the organization, not the algorithm. Patagonia provides a brilliant blueprint for how to preserve and amplify a moral community.
What did they do?
They deployed an AI system designed to surface local opportunities for their employees to support environmental initiatives or volunteer projects.
And because Patagonia's organizational identity is already so intensely defined by environmental activism, I imagine the reception to those prompts is very different than it would be at a generic accounting firm.
The results are staggering. They get an 80% participation rate in these AI surface projects.
80%.
Yeah. When the algorithmic prompt appears, the employees don't view it as a sterile mandate from corporate IT. They receive it as a technological confirmation of what people like us do.
So what does this all mean? It means the AI is acting purely as an amplifier of identity, not a creator of it. It's a megaphone for the values that are already breathing in the room.
Organizations must build explicit guardrails to maintain that dynamic. First, leadership must articulate their core values explicitly and translate them into observable behaviors.
You can't just program it to be good.
No, you cannot program an AI with a vague directive like be good. You have to operationalize it. If your value is inclusivity, you define it as soliciting input from diverse voices during meetings, so the AI actually has a measurable metric to look for and recommend.
And once the AI knows what to recommend, humans have to remain in the driver's seat.
Exactly. Organizations must empower what researchers call distributed leadership. This means giving frontline workers the explicit, decentralized right to override the AI's recommendations without fear of penalty.
Right.
You have to maintain clear, accessible escalation pathways where a human manager can say, the algorithm means well, but it is fundamentally wrong about the context of this specific situation.
You have to view AI as a tool to help you act on your values, not a substitute for your own judgment. It is essentially a fitness tracker for your ethics.
I love that.
The watch on your wrist can remind you to get your steps in, it can track your heart rate, and it can celebrate when you hit a goal. But the watch cannot run the marathon for you. The sweat, the effort, and the actual movement still have to come from you.
It is an amplifier of the human element, not a replacement for it.
This deep dependence on human judgment to keep these systems in check brings us to the ultimate takeaway of our deep dive. The incredible, counterintuitive good news here is that AI moral influence is asymmetric.
It really is.
It is an incredibly powerful prosocial tool that can drastically boost workplace charity, recognition, and collaboration. At the same time, it entirely lacks the social power and community standing to erode our ethical standards. It cannot make you a villain.
But the critical realization for you, the listener, is that while you shouldn't fear AI turning your coworkers evil, you also absolutely cannot rely on AI to prevent bad behavior.
So true.
If a colleague is determined to cut a corner or exploit a loophole, the AI's gentle nudge, to be honest, is not going to stop them. Traditional organizational guardrails, human culture, interpersonal accountability, and a shared moral community are entirely irreplaceable.
Which leaves us with a final lingering thought directly from the conclusion of the research. Something for you to mull over as you go back to your inbox and look at those auto-generated suggestions.
What's that?
Right now, we're existing in a fragile era where AI is just advising us. It is giving us a prompt, but leaving our human moral agency completely intact. We possess that moral floor protection because we still have the power of the final click.
For now.
Right. But what happens tomorrow? What happens when these AI systems cross the boundary from merely advising to autonomously acting on our behalf? When the system bypasses that human judgment layer entirely to send the email, deny the shift request, or freeze the department budget without ever asking for your permission?
That's the real question.
Do we lose our moral floor when that little blue squiggly line stops asking you to accept and just starts changing the world for you? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the algorithms around you, and remember, for now, the final click is still yours.